Thank you very much, Pedro, and welcome everyone to this session. Vlad, you're very welcome to your first forum, and I know you're looking forward to it. We've had a number of conversations over the last few weeks, and I have to say I've found them inspiring and compelling. Your story through your journey through health, I think, is lots of learning for us here and in the forum. And Pedro talked about collective, which is we're going to come to as part of the interview. We're going to focus on sort of 3 or 4 milestones and events through your journey. But maybe to start, will you tell us a little bit about why you got involved in healthcare? Your background is banking. You had a degree in business and economics. You were living in Vienna. Life seemed to be all set up and good in that, that was your future charted out. What drew you back into healthcare in Romania?
Thank you for having me, first of all, and really glad to be here. This is my first forum indeed, but I'm learning a lot, and there are so many opportunities to be inspired in your sessions. I left my country. I think my background is similar to millions of people in Romania and also in Eastern Europe that left their country and are now living or have been living in what we call the West, Western Europe, mostly UK and also in the United States. I left my country when I was 18 and I studied business and economics in Vienna, and then I started working as a banker, which I did for a bit more than 10 years. And you are asking what brought me back to Romania and what brought me in the healthcare sector. It was, as it usually is, I guess, there are very personal stories. And the first one was connected to a former high school colleague of mine who was diagnosed with cancer. And actually his mother asked me to get a second opinion and to ask for help. She knew that I was living in Vienna, and she hoped that the kid could get better treatment there. And it took me some time. I didn't know where to ask, and I actually this whole idea of a young boy being diagnosed with cancer and potentially losing his life and needing so much help at such a young age, this is all very depressing. And I thought, I don't know what to do. And as I said, it took me some time to get an appointment. And when I finally got the appointment and I brought also the biopsies, I was shocked to find out that he was misdiagnosed. And there was also some hope in this, right? If a proper diagnosis would have been possible, and then a proper treatment would have been available, then he would still have a chance. And so I called his mother, and I called actually my mother and asked, because his mother was a friend of hers, and I asked her to tell them both the bad news and the good news, that I finally got an appointment for them in Vienna. And I remember I was on the shore of the Black Sea. I was on vacation, and I remember looking at my feet when my feet in the sand when I found out that on that day he died. And I remember looking with tears in my eyes and asking myself whether I did enough, and whether his faith would have been would have been different if I would have acted sooner. So I said to myself that the next time somebody asks for my help, and a life might depend on whatever I can do, or I can try to do at least, I'll do it. And it was just months afterwards that I found out that in the biggest oncology institute of Romania, kids who got cancer couldn't be treated because some essential medicines were missing. Medicines like vinblastine and dacarbazine, so really cheap ones. What the WHO calls essential medicines are really both essential and cheap. So I found that very frustrating. And the first thing I did is I went to the pharmacy and I convinced an Austrian pharmacist in the very city center of Vienna to sell me some medicines that I brought with my backpack to Bucharest. And that is how it all began for me, with that backpack of medicines. It was 300 euro. And I bought medicines for 6 children. And actually, if there's one thing that you learn as an economist, as a person who studied business, it's this idea of efficiency. So I thought 300 euros spent for 6 kids, and they told me in the hospital that they're going to be able to, the statistics show that they're going to be able to save at least half of them. So I thought, if by spending 300 euros I'm going to be able to have such an impact, well, this is the best investment I've ever made by all means. So I'm going to do that again.
And that leads us neatly into the first video. If we could play the first video, please.
Astăzi le trimite din Ungaria și să vedem cu cine ni le pune. Ce trebuie să? Trebuie să-mi dați 100 imediat, vă fac.
N-am reușit să...
Am înțeles, stați liniștit, stați liniștit.
Vorbereitet für 100 Stück, 100 Milligramm. Hier steht jetzt 30 Stück.
Geben Sie mir die 100 Stück.
A cumpărat doar vreo 160 de pastile și acum le împart și eu la fiecare câte puțin și am zis să vă dau și vouă ceva.
Medicine? It's liquid.
Da, după aia ți-aduc 100 de pastile după aia.
Cine are în plus, dă și la altul și te rogi la Dumnezeu ca persoana respectivă să-ți facă rost și ție.
Dacă îți spune, domne, trebuie 2 pe zi, atunci mă sunați. 40 de bucăți. Atât?
Atât.
Mă așteptam la mai mult.
Vlad, tell us a little bit about the network and the impact that it's had.
Sorry, I just got disconnected. I just heard your last sentence.
Sorry. Just tell us, you were involved in setting up the network. Tell us a bit about the network and the impact that it's had.
The network, it was called the Network of Cancer Drugs in Romanian media. It existed basically from 2008 onwards. It was just a network of volunteers, people who never met each other, didn't know each other, and who found out from a simple website that I've created that people in Romania are missing one medicine or the other, and that we're willing to simply go to a pharmacy, usually in Western Europe, in Austria, Hungary, France, Spain, sometimes the UK, buy the medicine with a Romanian prescription, and then get that medicine in their backpacks, bring it over to the patients in Romania or to their physicians. That happened over, it was a very intensive period for over almost 5 years, to 2012. end of 2012, when over 2,500 patients were helped by this network alone, and these are only the actions that I've been able to monitor. But besides that, like any network, it works with various nodes. Many other patients have been helped by this. And eventually, when the story came out about a network of volunteers with thousands of people that are contributing, that are being helped, this led to an advocacy campaign that led to some changes in the legislation, and to some additional funding from the government that led to a partial solution for the problem, beginning of 2013. And then later on, I've been able to do something myself. But if you're gonna watch the movie, it's also an HBO movie, and you can find it in the meantime on YouTube. It's called The Network, and the filmmaker is Claudiu Mitcu. There's the story of a young doctor from Timișoara, a young lady doctor who was diagnosed with cancer, and she didn't with Hodgkin lymphoma. And from 4 medicines that she needed, 3 of them were missing. And the most compelling thing I've heard, and it shocked me back then, it was that being a medicine student, one of her professor got to be one of her attending physicians, and at one point he took her outside the ward, and he told her that look, we've got 4 patients who are waiting for the medicine, but you're the youngest and you're a medicine student, so you're gonna get it because we only have 1. And this is something that the lady doctor needs to live with. It's been more than 10 years since then, and she still has tears in her eyes when she's telling that story. So somebody who needs to live with a doctor who needs to live with the idea that she got the medicine before others. So where I always thought this is not reasonable, so we have to do something about it. And this is also the first time when I've seen the power of a community of people that do their with a small effort, with a bit of effort from each and every one, we can move forward. And even if the big problems usually need politics and need big solutions, but most of the times the solution has an embryo, and that embryo is one person or a small group of persons that are implementing change, and that goes further than to a movement or to a community really affecting change at a bigger scale.
It's a very powerful illustration if you think from a backpack with 300 euros of drugs in it to a sort of mobilization of a whole network of volunteers, and ultimately to changing the legislation and the way drugs are administered in Romania. It's a fabulous story, Vlad. Can we move on to the second, which is about Magic Home, which I think is a lovely story. If we could just play this video, and then I'll ask you to say a bit more about it.
This is a hospital chair. For parents of children with cancer, this is home. It's the only accommodation Romanian hospitals can provide for them. On this chair, parents sleep, cry, fall, and rise again. A house near the biggest oncology hospital to shelter these parents was desperately needed. To convince people to donate, together with Magic Camp NGO, we moved the reality of hospitals into a downtown art gallery, inviting people to take a seat on the chair that nobody wants to sit in. The commitment? Occupy the chair 24/7 until enough donations would be received. Celebrities donated their time for an online video that encouraged Romanians to join our cause. Then this happened. Almost 2,000 people registered on the dedicated website to what became the biggest solidarity gesture ever seen in Romania. The Romanians' response redefined the meaning of togetherness beyond race, religion, income, age, and status. For 23 days, around the clock, 636 people sat on this chair, and the entire experience was live broadcasted on YouTube. One chair changed the game for fundraising campaigns in Romania, raising €500,000 in only 3 weeks, with zero budget. Even after the campaign ended, donations kept coming. The money raised until today reaching over €1 million. Magic Home will open this summer, and more shelters are to be built.
It's the third or fourth time I've watched that, Vlad, and it still sort of moves me. I mean, it's such a simple idea, and yet it is such a big impact. Tell us a bit about how you became involved, and tell us the story.
With just after setting up the network and visiting oncology hospitals, we've learned more about the needs of kids with cancer and their families, and usually campaigns and help focuses on the child needs, but we're just as strong as our, I mean, especially if we get sick, we're just as strong as our close ones are, as those who are actually caring. The kids are as strong as their parents are usually. And if you wanna, it's not actually a unique situation that if you wanna help somebody who's in need, then you should look at those who are actually closest to that person and who are caring for that person, and see how you can help them, whether it is the parents, whether it's the grandparents, whether it is doctors and nurses, and those who are really involved, because many times we forget about them. And then we've set up a camp for kids with cancer. And not long afterwards, we found out that parents are sitting for weeks, sometimes for months, on that bloody chair. And it was somebody. It was a professional company called Jazz Communication that came up with this simple idea, like that transmits so much empathy. They said, we're going to put a chair in the city center of Bucharest, and we're going to sit on that chair 24 hours, 7 days a week, until we get the money to build a home near the hospital where they can properly get a nap, get some rest, wash their clothes, and so on. And this was amazing. I mean, the answer was amazing, and it also came at a moment in time. This was 3 years ago, where I think the divide in society was huge. At least in Romania, we had the biggest protests. It had to do with politics and populism, but more profoundly, it's the division of the divide of people, like we're anti-immigrants, anti-establishment, anti-something. But this was a moment where we had all to be, people had to be, or had the option to be for something, for those parents, and by donating €2 or sitting on that chair. And within the first hours of the campaign, it was November, and we were hoping to get people to sit on that chair for a month. We were hoping to get the money in a month or something like that, and we were afraid that we won't get the people to sit on that chair. And in the first hours, we got people to sit from November until April next year. 24 hours, 7 days a week, and that was simply amazing. It was people also coming from abroad to just do that. Kids who went to who were adults now, and they said they would come to sit on that chair to feel what their mother felt when she was accompanying them, and it was amazing. And I think such projects that are very concrete, and it's about. I mean, nobody can argue against it. This is the sort of things that are bringing people together, and there's a nice thing that Cat Stevens, the famous rock star, said at some point. He said, "You can argue with a philosopher, you cannot argue with a good song." And I think such projects and good deeds and things like that are just like good music. You can't argue with a good song, and you can't argue with such a movement. And I think lots of the ideas I've heard in the forum, and lots of the things that are the projects that people who are listening now are involved in, these are just like good music. And I think this is bringing people together. There are so many occasions where we can fall apart, but things like that, very concrete, very down to earth, helping people, helping kids and their parents. These are the kind of projects that bring us together. This is super important.
Yeah. Thank you, Vlad. It's a fabulous story, and I think for people that are listening in, how a simple idea, when you mobilize people and get people behind it, can have huge impact. And I know we plan to try and get Pedro to sing a Cat Stevens song, but I can assure you nobody would want to hear Pedro sing. Let's move on to the next video, because in many ways I think this is probably the piece that you're most well known for. And I've watched the video collective, the film collective, now a number of times, and I find it very harrowing, compelling and inspiring all at once. But ultimately it's actually quite a tragic story, because young people losing their lives unnecessarily and unavoidably. So let's play the video, and then we'll discuss it.
Cum e posibil ca oameni care au ieșit de acolo să moară după 12 zile?
Deci, practic, ei au ascuns lucrurile astea, da? Dacă nu spunem lucrurilor pe nume, suntem complici. Povestea e atât de halucinantă încât mi-e teamă că o să părem nebuni.
Sunt ministrul Sănătății. Dar primul lucru pe care trebuie să-l faci ca să câștigi sau să recâștigi încrederea cuiva este să încetezi să-l minți.
Omor oameni.
Nu ne putem permite treaba asta.
Și cum ne poate rezolva chestia asta?
Și noi am avut o încredere oarbă în autorități.
Iar ce vedem aici, de când am venit, dar tot ce e sub este putreț.
în momentul în care presa ajunge să facă reverențe autorităților, autoritățile se vor purta rău cu oameni, cetățeni. Întotdeauna se întâmplă asta pretutindeni în lume, s-a întâmplat și în cazul nostru.
Hasn't seen the film to watch it because it is it's stranger than fiction. It's harrowing, it's compelling, and it's inspiring all at once. Vlad, tell us your perspective a little bit more about the story and what was behind it and how you ended up becoming health minister.
The collective was the name of the place where the fire started, and it was a turning point for our country, for Romania. I think it was the moment where a big part of society realized that on the one hand, corruption kills. That was what people were shouting on the streets. As simple as that. So corruption is not something that affect our budgets, only our budgets and our lives at large, but it can kill in a very concrete and direct and short-term way, if you want to put it like that. It was a nightclub that got where the permits have been. They got their permits in some funny way that nobody could trace afterwards. And then what happened in the hospitals and in the reaction of the authorities was definitely not okay. First, the idea of recognizing the limitations of our healthcare system, that was politically not desirable back then. And there was a backlash from society, from a big part of society, and what the film shows on the one hand are the limitations of a healthcare system, and the corruption of those disinfectants that didn't contain what they should have contained, and there was what you might call a mafia around it, making lots of money from products that were supposed to save people in hospitals and that were obviously not doing that. Some of them were just colored water, and there's just one drop in the ocean. The other things are related to nosocomial infections that were not properly reported, medical errors that were not properly reported. A report just came out yesterday in Romania. There are 42% of the hospitals are still not reporting any medical errors, and it's a culture of that comes probably way from the communist times. That when people are reporting to the authorities, people tend to sugarcoat everything, and it's a culture that we need to change, and this is happening. This is happening by individual efforts, and this is happening recently also on a political level. But of course, this is an effort that will take many years from now. It's about data. It's about how the data are being reported. It's about empathy. And this connection between data and empathy. You care about people, so you have to properly report the data, and then you have to use the data. and you have to use the expertise that you have. And I think this is a topic that was especially relevant also in current times, in the COVID-19 times, where it was basically about protecting people that you love, or just your people, and then having the data properly reported, and then doing something with that data, and then making policies, taking actions based on real data and based on experts' opinions, and not in a let's call it political populistic approach. We saw where that brought what that brought to on some countries.
Vlad, can I ask you? I mean, you were in many ways taking on the whole system, the political context for it, and trying to change the governance and whole arrangements within the health system. Where did you draw your inspiration? Because it must be a lonely position as a health minister trying to do that. Where did you draw your inspiration, your ideas, and your courage from?
I think any leadership position comes with a certain degree of loneliness, and it takes a lot of courage to approach things that have not been approached before. The story I'm always telling is about the people that have already started to change things in my country and all over the world. I think the worst idea is that the worst danger of them all is this whole idea that there's nothing one man or woman can do to effect change to against this enormous array of world's ill and corruption, and but most of the things, most of the good things, and most of the big changes in this world started from one person, actually, or from a small group of people. There's this thing we learned in school, right, from Archimedes. Give me a place to stand and I'll move the world. I think, there are people who move the world, and even though we're not all of us are going to be able to write history or to change history at large, but with everything that each of us does, with every change in our little world, this is how the history of a generation is being written, and this is where it all starts. So my inspiration are people who are already doing that, or people who are. That's what that's what I love about my country, is that people are, many times I felt that people are just waiting for somebody to start, or for a framework, and this is what leadership is about for me. It's about having the courage to not only take one step, but then create some sort of framework, create some space for others to join, for others to do their own thing, and people will join, and that's something that I've experienced already so many times. With the first time was with the network of cancer drugs, people from all over Europe. It wasn't only Romanians; there were Austrians and Hungarians that both donated money and transported medicines with their own backpacks. Just for the sake, just knowing that they're gonna help somebody they would never get to know, and then with the Magic Home campaign, and then I was lucky enough to be at the center of many, or to see firsthand so many people who got involved without expecting anything in return. And I think everyone has that not only the wish but the need to do things that have real impact in people's lives, and we just need to help a bit. And this is something that fuels itself then.
Vlad, unfortunately, we're out of time, because I could keep talking to you for a lot longer, and I'm quite sure, and I'm saying through the chat that I know people who are listening in would love to listen for longer. You talked about inspiration. I think you will be an inspiration to many who are listening in today. You talked about Cat Stevens' sort of quote as an inspiration. I suppose I'd maybe like to finish with a quote from a sort of 19th century US clergyman and philosopher, James Freeman Clarke. It's quite a famous quote. I had to look it up to see who had actually said it first, but that's who's allegedly supposed to have said it first. And it's: the politician thinks of the next election. The statesman thinks of the next generation. A politician thinks of the party, and a statesman thinks of the country. I think anybody who's listened in today, Vlad, will see that you have all the credentials and I think live the values of a statesperson. You've been inspiring for a lot of us who've listened today, so thank you for joining us, and thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you. Good luck.